as possible.
We now come to the ministerial statement. The Secretary of State for the Home Department, Prithee Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a statement about the United Kingdom's new points-based immigration system. Last week I announced our plans for a radical new approach that works in the interests of the British people. A fair, firm and fundamentally different system in the control of the British government that prioritises those who come to our country based on the skills they have to offer and not from the country that they come from. A system that enables the UK to become a magnet for the brightest and the best, with special immigration routes for those that will make the biggest contribution. We will create new arrangements for new migrants who will fill shortages in our NHS, build the companies and innovations of the future and benefit the United Kingdom for years to come. As this government restores our status as an independent sovereign nation, we will set our own standards and controls as an open, democratic and free country on immigration. The government has listened to the clear message from the British public, and we are delivering what the people asked for in the 2016 referendum and the December 2019 general election. That includes, Mr. Speaker, ending free movement through the introduction of a single global immigration system which prioritises the skills that people have to offer and not where they came from, and restoring public trust in our immigration system with an immigration system that truly works for this country. That is what the people voted for, and we are a government that will deliver on the people's priorities. We are ending free movement, that automatic right for EU citizens to enter and reside in the UK, which did not apply to people from other countries. And now we have left the EU, this ambitious government of action is ending the discrimination between EU and non-EU citizens so that we can attract the brightest and the best from around the world. Our country and our people will prosper through one system and an approach that is in the control of the British government, one that will also deliver an overall reduction in low-skilled immigration, as the public asked for. Mr. Speaker, many of the values that define our great country originate from the huge benefits that immigration has brought to our nation throughout its history. From every corner of the globe, people from around the world have made an enormous contribution to the very fabric of our society, which is why at the heart of this new single global immigration system, this government will focus on bringing the talented people from around the world and the contribution that they and their families will make irrespective of their country of origin. And last Wednesday, I published a policy statement setting out the new UK points-based immigration system, which will start operating from the 1st of January 2021 and will work in the interests of the whole United Kingdom. This will be a single, comprehensive UK-wide system for workers and students from around the world. Our points-based system will provide a simple, effective and flexible arrangements to give top priority to the skilled workers we need to boost our economy and support our brilliant public services. All applicants will need to demonstrate that they will have a job offer from an approved sponsor. The job must be at an appropriate skill level. The applicant must be able to speak English and meet tougher criminality standards and checks. We have acted on the advice of the Migration Advisory Committee to make the skilled workers route more flexible, as business has asked for. We have reduced the required skill level to the equivalent of A-level qualifications and cut the general salary threshold to £25,600. The threshold for many NHS workers and teachers will be set in line with the published pay scales to ensure that our public services do not suffer and we attract the talent we need. And if an experienced worker earns less than the general threshold, but not less than the £20,480,000, they may still be able to apply under the tradable points to reward vital skills to bring that talent that our economy needs. For example, a PhD in a relevant subject will earn points with double the number of points for STEM specialists. Additional points will be awarded for occupations that struggle to fill vacancies. And I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, the Migration Advisory Committee to keep their list under regular review to ensure that it reflects the needs of the labour market. And, Mr. Speaker, specific to our great NHS, this government will ensure that talented employees from overseas, which the NHS rely on, are able, yes, to come here to work and to provide high quality and compassionate care. And that means we will prioritise qualified staff looking to move to the UK to work in our NHS, alongside this government's own national conviction through the investments made by this government in our NHS to invest in and train more brilliant nurses, doctors and public health professionals in our own country. The new NHS visa will provide a work visa with a fast-track decision, a larger dedicated advice service for applicants and reduced fees. Now, Mr Speaker, like many honourable members, I represent a partly rural constituency, and our commitment to British agriculture is clear. So alongside the reforms to the system that I've outlined, I'm quadrupling the size of the pilot scheme for seasonal agricultural workers within the horticultural sector to ensure that our farms and our horticultural sector continues to thrive, and that is happening immediately. On students, we will continue to welcome additional international students who want to study in our world-class universities across the United Kingdom, and there will be no cap on their numbers. Those who apply will be accepted provided they are sponsored by an approved educational institution, have the necessary academic qualifications and English language aptitude, and are able to support themselves financially once in the United Kingdom. And after finishing their studies, our new graduate route will allow them to stay in the UK and work at any skill level for up to a further 2 years. And, Mr Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to reassure members of this House that the immigration arrangements for members of our armed forces, musicians and performers are completely unchanged, and these routes will operate as they do now. In line with ending free movement, there will be no immigration route for lower skilled workers. No longer will employers be able to rely on cut-price EU workers. Instead, we are calling on them rightly to invest in British people, as well as investing in technology skills to improve productivity and to join the UK government's mission to level up on skills, economic growth across our country. And these changes are vital if we are to deliver a high-skill, high-wage and highly productive economy by providing certainty on the new immigration system, and the economy and businesses have also had time to adjust. Mr Speaker, the proposals set out in our policy statement are just the start of a phased approach to delivering a new immigration system. We will continue to refine our immigration system and build on flexibility where it is needed. Over time, more attributes for which points can be earned may be added, such as previous experience and additional qualifications, allowing us to respond effectively to the needs of the labour market and the economy. But to be effective, it must be simple, so there will not be the endless exemptions for low-paid, lower-skilled workers. And we are not going to end free movement, only to recreate it through other routes in name only. The world's top talent will continue to be welcomed to our country. And from January, we will expand our existing global talent route to EU citizens, giving all the world's brightest and the best the same streamlined access across the UK. The reforms I introduced last week will allow us to attract even more brilliant scientists, mathematicians and researchers through this route to keep this country at the cutting edge of life-changing innovation and technology. And the points-based system will provide even more flexibility to attract the finest international minds with the most to offer. Alongside the employer-led system, we will create a points-based unsponsored route to allow a limited number of the world's highly skilled to come here without a job offer as part of the phased approach if they can secure enough points. Mr Speaker, our new fair and firm immigration system will send a message to the whole world that Britain is open for business, and we continue to attract the brightest and the best from around the world, but with a system that the British government has control over. Our blueprint for taking back control will transform the way in which people come, work, study, visit or even join their family to our country. And our new independence will strengthen border security, allowing us to reject insecure identity documents for newly arriving migrants. We will be able to do more to keep criminals out who seek to do harm to our people, communities and country. And, Mr Speaker, finally, I'm pleased to say that when it comes to EU citizens already in the UK, the EU settlement scheme, the biggest scheme of its kind ever in British history, has already received 3.2 million applications and resulted in 2.8 million grants of status. We will finally, through this system, develop a true meritocracy where anyone who wants to come with the skills and have the ability to do so come. This is just the start of a phased approach delivering a new system. I will shortly be bringing forward an immigration bill and radically overhauling and simplifying the complex immigration rules that have really dominated the system over a number of decades. And for the first time in decades, the UK will have control over who comes here and how our immigration system works. I commend this statement to the House.
Bel Ribeiro Addy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I would like to thank the Home Secretary for early sight of the statement. Mr Speaker, the Home Secretary and the Government calls this a points-based immigration system. But Professor Alan Manning, the departing chair of the Migration Advisory Committee, derided this and called it a soundbite, that is, meaningless phraseology. The truth is, Mr Speaker, that the Government is introducing a set of restrictions on migration for work, including, of course, the damaging salary threshold. But this is not the sole restriction. Workers earning below this salary threshold are not low-skilled at all. There is no such thing as low-skilled work, just low-paid work. All work is skilled when it is done well. In fact, outside London and the South East, they are the majority of workers. Again, they are underpaid, not low-skilled. In trying to exclude their overseas recruitment, ministers run the risk of doing even greater damage to our public services than they have already done. Ministers must surely be aware that a key problem for the NHS is that, as its leaders tell us, the exit door is closed. Patients who are well enough to be discharged from hospitals are not discharged because they lack access to social care packages. Blocking the overseas recruitment of social care workers who are generally paid well below the threshold will cause major problems for social care. It is already in crisis and will exacerbate the exiting problems in the NHS. Ministers seem unconcerned. I must mention the need for the new NHS-specific visa. Surely the obvious thing would have been to create points for NHS jobs in this new system, but then I suppose the Government would have to admit that the salary threshold is simply not feasible and admit that the system will just not work. It's certainly not a singular global immigration system, and it's already proving a number of exemptions will be needed to make it work. But social care and the NHS are not the only areas that will be hit. The Government tell us that the unemployment rate is currently close to its lowest. This completely contradicts what ministers suggest, that immigration causes unemployment or creates slack conditions in the labour market leading to low pay. The Home Secretary seems to believe that the gaps can be filled by the economically inactive. I strongly doubt that this Government intends to get carers, the elderly, students into work by raising their wages, but more likely is that they will cut benefits once again. Many employers report that they too will struggle to fill vacancies or even close the gap caused by the departing EU workers, who will now lose their rights under this system. The requirement to speak English is a complete red herring. It's dog whistle politics. Most people who come here to work and the government system will demand that they come here with a specific job offer and come here with some English language skills and learn more as they go. It's very difficult to function in the labour market without English at all, which is why they already do speak English when they come here. Does the Government intend to split up families? Does the Government intend to split up families where the spouse or the child has less than perfect English? This would be cruel and humane. Does the Government also intend to block the recruitment of scientists, mathematicians, IT specialists and so on if they have less than perfect English? If so, this will completely undermine ministers' boasts about global Britain recruiting the brightest and the best. In fact, it will tend towards recruiting only those who are the most desperate if their spouse will be blocked from coming or they can find employment in a country where their spouse can reside. And what to that of a family right to life in general? Will the new work visas allow the right to a family life? If not, which scientist or PhD professional would choose a country which doesn't allow their right to a family life? There's no justification for denying access also to public funds for a number of years. If you're working here, you are paying taxes. You and your family should have access to the benefits paid for by those taxes. This includes working tax credits. It also includes access to the NHS. Have ministers considered the public health implications of restricting access to the NHS in this way, even if they're unable to consider the human costs? And there is, too, the case of spouses who become victims of domestic abuse being denied access to refuges. This is shameful. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to address a grave concern many of us on this side of this House have regarding workers' and citizens' rights. We cannot accept that work visas are tied to specific employers and want reassurances that this will not only be the case. Otherwise, the government will be creating conditions of bonded employment where the threat of dismissal implies the threat of deportation. This would be disastrous for migrant workers and their families and detrimental to the interests of the entire workforce.
I'm expected to run this to around 5 o'clock. Home Secretary.
Speaker. May I welcome the Honourable Lady to her new position and wish her every success in the role. And if I may say so, Mr. Speaker, I think it's a little bit disappointing because it sounds to me like the Honourable Lady has not actually read the policy statement and has used her remarks to conflate this. If the Honourable Gentleman allows me, without being rude and interrupting, I will come on to the point specifically. Perhaps you should have the courtesy and the patience to listen. I appreciate he's in a hurry. I'm not at all. The Honourable Lady, actually, no, I wasn't putting her down. So she's obviously, if you would like to listen, conflating a number of issues with a new immigration system that very clearly I have outlined is a phased approach that is focusing on skills, not on focusing on certain aspects of family reunion or benefits or welfare or access to public funds. And also, this policy clearly, this policy, she may shake her head in disagreement, but this policy fundamentally is set alongside the fact that we as a government have left the EU. This is about an immigration policy in the control of a British government, not subject to EU laws and EU policies and EU alignments. That is a fundamental shift and fundamental change. And the point about this system is that it is taking back control, as the British government, as we have set out, of our borders, ensuring that we can get the brightest and the best through the tiered approach, through points, as outlined in the policy statement as well. And the system will end the reliance on low-skilled workers. And importantly, I think she would join this government and welcome our collective mission now to ensure that people are paid higher wages. We want a high-skilled economy. We don't want a low-pay economy. And if I may, when it comes to social care is not about low-skilled at all. People that work in social care should be paid properly, and it's right that businesses and employers invest in their skills to give compassionate care, the type of care that is absolutely needed. And it strikes me, Mr. Speaker, the one thing I would just conclude in my remarks in relation to the Honourable Lady is that the Labour Party seems to have closed their ears to the remarks of the British public in the general election in the 2016 referendum, and basically is still the party that is advocating open borders and free-for-all on immigration.
Sir Ian Duncan-Smith.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I say to my right honourable friend how enormously pleased I am that she is here in this job, which she is doing brilliantly. And all of us believe that here for certain. Can I go on to say that on the migration policy that she has announced out over the last week, could she also confirm the reality is that many of our constituents were concerned about the scale of migration. They're not anti-migrant. They're concerned about the scale of migration, where over 1 million net number of migrants coming in over 3 years now are responding to about 80% of all population growth. So this is a scale unprecedented. Will she now confirm, therefore, given all of that and the cost to benefits, that the purpose of this is ultimately to bring the scale of that migration down to manageable levels?
My right honourable friend, and he is absolutely absolutely right in the point that he makes. The government has been very clear and listened to the messages from the 2016 referendum and the general election. And of course, this is absolutely about ensuring that the brightest and the best come here, and through a points-based system, that the British government has control over immigration and numbers, and that we will reduce numbers in due course through the long term, but also will bring in new checks and measures. That is absolutely what the British public have been calling for. They want to know that there is a government that is in control of its system, that brings in tighter checks, brings in tighter regulations, that yes, is not closed for business, is open for business, brings the brightest and the best, but also that we deal with some of the issues in terms of getting numbers down, but also the other routes in terms of EU migrants and the criminality checks that desperately need to be brought in.
Stuart C. MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Despite lots of competition, this pretend points-based system surely amounts to one of the most damaging, unimaginative and unpopular policy announcements made by a Home Secretary in recent years. Don't get me wrong, it will be fine for the big multinational companies in the city with their armies of immigration lawyers, but it will be a disaster for everybody else. Let me ask the Home Secretary again. Surely she regrets that her paper insults half the population by characterising their hard work as cheap, unskilled labour, and indeed her insinuation that their work could just as easily be done by the long-term sick or by robots. But why have employers been given just a few months to prepare for these massive changes when the Home Office took 3.5 years just to dream them up? Will she listen to the swathes of industry leaders telling her it will be impossible to fill vacancies because of the salary thresholds, and to the employers worried that they will be mired in the red tape and expense of sponsorship and visa processes? Why has she removed even the half-baked temporary worker scheme that was meant to operate as a transitional measure? Why is there no provision for self-employed workers? What has happened to the remote areas pilot scheme promised by her predecessor, or the heavily trailed extra points that were to be on offer for working outside London? And why has she said nothing about the tens of thousands of extra families that will be destroyed if she extends the UK's barbaric family migration rules to their relationship? Is that her plan? Madam Deputy Speaker, this will be disastrous across all manner of key sectors in Scotland, from agriculture to hospitality, fishing to manufacturing, construction to social care. Free movement was the one part of the migration system that actually worked for Scotland. So can I ask her, does she even understand the very basic point that reducing migration is a disastrous policy goal for Scotland? And has she yet read the Scottish Government paper on a Scottish visa, and will she finally commit to engage in good faith on those proposals?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Honourable Gentleman for his comments and the points that he has raised. I think, first of all, I think it's important to recognise that the new points-based system will work in the interests of the whole of the United Kingdom, and that does include Scotland. Independent experts, including, well, the MAC, have recommended that a single, less restrictive system is absolutely right and essential to attract the brightest and the best. And of course, we will work with stakeholders across the country, and we are doing so already, with regards to the system and how this will work and how this will support all communities. I've also touched on various sectors, including seasonal agricultural workers. He asked specifically and mentioned the point about businesses. The point right now with the system itself is that we are introducing greater flexibility for business, and those businesses that have engaged with the Home Office, and he may shake his head in disagreement, but the business community specifically asked for a number of factors, including the abolition of the resident labour market test, to remove the cap on numbers on the number of skilled workers, to get down the salary thresholds, to make sure that had been lowered, and it has been. We have reformed the exceptional talent route, again what business asked for. We are working on a simpler, streamlined sponsorship process, again that's what business asked for, and we are aiming to reduce the actual time for visa processing. Skilled workers will also be able to switch easily between employers through a sponsored licence, and that is effectively what businesses have asked for. We have delivered on that through this system. And also, I think it's fair to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, businesses have been not only engaged, but right down to the recruitment giant Hayes, their chief executive has also recently said that it was right that this system will help to build a world-class economy that our business needs, and it needs access to world-class talent, and not just talent originating from the EU. And my final point, if I may, to the Scottish Nationalists, is I appreciate that we have been engaging, we have had dialogue with them, But I think it's important right now that the Migration Advisory Committee, if the honourable gentleman just stops chuntering and lets me make this point.
Order! We don't conduct debates while sitting. I can see the clock. I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for pointing out the clock. Thank you very much indeed. Secretary of State.
And Deputy Speaker, it is the Migration Advisory Committee that has stated we should have a single UK immigration policy, one that is based on one system that will benefit every single part of the United Kingdom.
Sir John Redwood.
Well done to the Home Secretary on taking back control of our orders and ending low-paid migration. Will she confirm that 10 months is more than enough time for talented officials in the Home Office to implement this excellent scheme as she, the public and the government want?
Yeah. Friend is absolutely right. And indeed, it is down to the talented teams who have been working, particularly on this policy area, that have absolutely helped this government to deliver this, literally in our first 100 days as a new government. We promised, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we would deliver the people's priorities, and that's exactly what we are doing.
Yvette Cooper.
The Home Secretary said she wants the new visa scheme to be in place from January 2021. The policy document also says the deadline for the EU settlement scheme for EU citizens already living here is June 2021, and that until then employers will only be expected to and allowed to check if someone has an EU passport. Can she therefore confirm that the Home Office does not intend to enforce the new scheme through or with employers for the first 6 months? And if it does, what is she expecting the employers to check?
So the Honourable Lady is right in terms of the deadlines and the time frame for the EU settlement scheme, and also that we will have established by January 2021 the outline, the first phase of the points-based system. We are in the process now of working with employers, and in fact, to the my right honourable friend from my right honourable friend's colleague comment just now, we are engaging with employers in terms of the system, the sponsorship route, and also the way in which employers in the UK work with those that will be coming over from the EU next year to have that period to confirm their status and to carry on working. We are engaging with employers, and that's my answer.
David Davis.
Mr. Speaker, our excellent Home Secretary had two fundamental questions to answer today. One was she going to reflect the democratic will of 70 to 80% of the British public, not to do away with immigration but to control it and manage it properly? And secondly, was she going to do it in a way which worked in the national interest for all of us and all of the immigrants who come here to work and give our country the skills that they carry? Is she as surprised as me that the primary thrust of both of the opposition spokesmen who have spoken so far seems to be to allow British companies, British profit-making companies, to maximise their access to cheap labour?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, in short, I'm not surprised by the position that the opposition has taken, and it shows once again the contempt that they've been showing to the British public.
Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Home Secretary has said that additional points will be awarded for occupations that struggle to fill vacancies. In the tech sector, often those jobs are lower paid at the start and also ill-defined, and they don't actually have a job title. So how will she make sure that the Migration Advisory Committee recognises those emerging jobs and actually can act in real time?
Right, and our economy and our labour market is changing, and that's thanks to technology and emerging skills that may not even be reflected in the discussion and the debate that we're having today. And with that, that is why we will be looking to bring in from next year a tradable points system, which recognises, yes, the talent and the skills, but also the role that the MAC has to play in assessing the labour market. So fundamentally changing the way in which we look at the labour market and emerging sectors, whether it's new technology or other sectors as well, where we know we will need to surge people and their skills. And that is obviously work that will take place with the MAC.
The Honourable Gentleman for Cardiff West was quite right to point out that the clock is ticking. It's not going any faster than it normally does, but this statement is going rather slower because questions have been rather long, and when a question is long, the Minister has to give a long answer in order to answer the whole question. Therefore, let us all try to have shorter questions so the Minister can give shorter answers, and that way everyone will get in. Otherwise, most people are not going to have a chance to say anything. Owen Paterson.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I heartily congratulate my right honourable friend for bringing forward this policy. She and I first discussed it when I visited fruit farmers in her constituency when she was a thrusting young backbencher. Will she confirm that the great advantage of her scheme is that it gives flexibility and that we can now adapt our needs to supply and demand and development of new labour-saving technologies?
My right honourable friend is absolutely right, and I do recall our great visit to Tiptree and the fruit farms there. He's absolutely right to speak about how we can invest in people but technology, and that is the ambition of this government as a whole through new approaches, but to make sure we have the brightest and the best, but also are in a place of great innovation.
Chris Elmore.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've been approached by a carer who has been a carer since 1996. She has specialised in dementia, end-of-life palliative care, and has comforted people who have lost their loved ones over the course of her 25-year career. She is on a register and can be struck off, just like a doctor, but it's her pay that defines her by the Home Secretary's own criteria to be low-skilled. The carer in question is my mother, and I am deeply proud of the work that she's done over the course of those 25 years. And the reality is the Home Secretary is pinning carers as low-skilled because she won't tackle the issue of low pay in the care sector to do the right thing and resolve the pay and conditions of the care sector across this country.
The contrary, Madam Deputy Speaker. I define care as a good quality, and it is not low skill.
Order. Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, caring is not a low-skilled occupation, and it is wrong for anybody in this House to say that it is. Carers provide essential and compassionate care to people, our loved ones, and across our country and society. And it is important, there is a message here for employers of the care sector to increase their pay to reflect the quality of care that is given, and that is absolutely the right thing to do.
Bill Wiggin.
I'm really pleased that my right honourable friend has grasped the thorny element of the agricultural sector. I have 20,000 seasonal agricultural workers in my constituency alone, so I'm hoping that her pilot scheme will grow. Can we make sure that the nimbleness and speed at which these appeals will be dealt with can be top of her priority list, so that when big companies want highly skilled workers, they can get them, even if they appear to be doing a low-skilled job?
So, Madam Deputy Speaker, that is absolutely right. We have quadrupled the seasonal agriculture workers scheme, which is vital. But the flexibility in the system is crucial in the way in which we turn around the applications, and that is effectively what businesses have asked for, and that's what we are going to deliver.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Secretary of State said in her statement that there will be no immigration route for lower-skilled work. If one puts aside the patronising aspect of that statement, who then does the Secretary of State think will build our homes, will serve in our hotels and restaurants, and who will care for our elderly? And does she accept that while she might see this statement as delivering high-skilled, high-wage and highly productive economy, what the rest of us hear is low-caring?
Secretary of State.
Well, I'd say to the Honourable Lady, as she will see if she's read the policy statement, when it comes to needs in our labour market and our economy, the points-based system not only will have a scoring system involved there, but if she'd heard what I said about the Migration Advisory Committee, we will look at the labour market as a whole across key sectors. And I'm sorry she continues to shake her head, but that is absolutely the right route forward. And also, it is vital that businesses invest in people. Invest in people domestically, skill them up, but also pay them well and create the right kind of career paths for them so that their own skills can be recognised.
Virginia Crosby.
As a scientist myself, can I welcome the government's intention to make it easier to attract leading scientists, engineers and mathematicians to come and work in the UK? And can my right honourable friend confirm whether she has plans to cap the number of people who can qualify for Tier 1 exceptional talent visa status?
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The honourable friend is absolutely right when it comes to exceptional talent, and last week, in fact, I announced a new approach to the exceptional talent route with mathematicians and scientists, and have been very, very clear that we intend to grow that to make sure that obviously our country, our economy and our labour market benefits from that, but also some of our great institutions, our universities and academic institutions. And of course, we want to continue to make sure that flourishes and grows.
Kate Green.
The Secretary of State's part of a government which rightly wants to expand housing supply, but the construction sector is characterised by many self-employed contractors, and yet the government is not introducing a dedicated self-employed route. What reassurances can she give to the construction sector that the skill shortages that we already face, for example, in joinery, electricians, bricklaying, plumbing and so on, will not fall off a cliff at the end of 2020?
So the Honourable Lady is right in terms of self-employment, and we are already discussing specifically with the construction sector, because of the way in which they contract with individuals to the self-employed route, how we will absolutely make sure that, again, the skills that are needed in the labour market in the construction sector are absolutely catered for. And of course, with the points-based system, we are looking at posts and positions that meet the RQF3 threshold in that particular space. That's the route of qualification, and those discussions are already underway.
OK, we've got to go a lot faster. Dr Caroline Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I congratulate my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, in bringing forward this points-based immigration system, another Conservative manifesto policy being delivered. As an NHS doctor, I've worked with many talented colleagues from around the world. Can my right honourable friend confirm that the new NHS visa will enable doctors from around the world to come and work in the NHS quickly and easily?
Absolutely, I can, Madam Deputy Speaker. And in fact, it is a fast-tracked NHS visa. And the visa applications themselves will be processed within 2 to 3 weeks, provided they are sponsored by the NHS, so parts of the NHS system directly. This will apply to doctors, nurses and allied healthcare professionals.
Carol Monaghan.
Madam Deputy Speaker. Albert Einstein famously spoke very little English. When the Secretary of State speaks of attracting the brightest and the best, how much damage is she willing to inflict on our research sector? And how many Einsteins is she happy to lose in her pursuit of her immigration targets?
I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Lady has failed to recognise that the points-based system is absolutely designed to attract the brightest and the best, including those, if she'd heard the comments that I made about those that may not meet the thresholds, they'll be able to come because they have the skills that our academic institutions need, and that is the right way forward.
Andrew Boyd.
Madam Deputy Speaker, like my honourable friend, the member for North West Hertfordshire, I too have a large rural constituency that employs many thousands of seasonal migrants. So, in welcoming the quadrupling of the seasonal agricultural worker scheme, could I ask my right honourable friend to keep a beady eye on the scheme and keep the door open to possible further increases should it be necessary in the future?
Well, my honourable friend is right about the source scheme, but he will also recognise that specific for Scotland, there is already a dedicated shortage of occupation list that exists, and of course that will continue.
Gio Moro.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Does the Home Secretary recognise that by equating skills and salary, she is saying to the lab technician driving innovation in Newcastle University and the care worker helping my constituents in Elsick that they are unskilled and talentless? And will she not bring forward a fair system that reflects the economic and social needs that we have, rather than scapegoating immigrants who make such a contribution to our
The lady will recognise through the policy statement, which I'm sure she has read, that there are skills, points can be applied to the skills that are required across the sector. So that would apply for lab technicians. I had this discussion last week at Imperial College in London, but also equally to the social care system. And if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker, specific to the social care system, and it's right that people raise this issue, the Department of Health and Social Care are absolutely working with the care sector to look at not just what the points-based system will mean, but also investing in the care sector to train people so that they can absolutely continue to deliver the great social care they do.
Henry Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I very much welcome the introduction of a skilled points-based immigration system, as is commonplace amongst many developed economies around the the world. Will she also increase resources to tackling illegal immigration as well?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. Illegal migration is a significant issue facing our country, but many other countries as well. And this government has a very strong and clear illegal migration strategy.
Stephen Doughty.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I was confused by what the Home Secretary said about musicians and performers, because that certainly doesn't fit with what was being recorded in the music press this week in NME about savings requirements on performers coming in. Our music industry thrives on people being able to perform and tour, as the Musicians Union have argued, and come here and collaborate, and draw attention to my declaration of interests as well.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. So just for clarity, there will be no changes to the existing routes.
Robert Halfon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I warmly welcome what my right honourable friend is doing. And is it not the case that countries that have point-based systems have much stronger output and productivity per worker? And is it also not the case that all we are doing is saying that we should take control of our immigration policy and decide who comes here?
My right honourable friend is absolutely right, and this is a pledge that we've made to the British public, that the British government will be in control of our new immigration system. And of course, my honourable friend is absolutely right. Our aspiration is for a high-wage, high-skill and highly productive economy, and that's what we're working to deliver.
Stuart Hosey.
The Secretary of State has made great play of the quadrupling of the seasonal agricultural pilot scheme from 2.5 to 10,000 people. At a push that would just about, maybe, fill the shortfall in Scotland, come nowhere close to the 100,000 seasonal workers required across the UK. So let me ask her, how many thousands of tonnes of fruit and vegetables need to rot in the fields before she's dragged back here to apologise for and rip up this dog whistle nonsense?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I fundamentally disagree with the tone and the point that the honourable gentleman has made. We have been very clear and committed. We're growing the pilot. So the pilot was established, I think, over 12 months ago. Let's say 12 months ago. And since then, we've now announced that we are quadrupling the seasonal agricultural workers pilot. But with that, yes to 10,000, that is quadrupling this. But at the same time, the honourable gentleman would have heard that we are calling upon business and all sectors to invest in technology, to increase their wages, to increase their productivity, and that is something that we need to do collectively as a nation across all sectors.
I appreciate that the Home Secretary is giving full answers in answer to very serious questions, but the House will have to forgive her if she gives quicker answers now and not criticise her for not being full in her explanations, because otherwise everyone is not going to get a chance, and probably they're not anyway. Sir Paul Beresford.
Thank you. I welcome the move that's been promoted today. There's an ethnic minority immigrant who came here to work on the national health. That's to be expected. After I arrived here, the system changed. There are now opportunities for people from old Commonwealth, English-speaking, well, sort of English-speaking peoples from the top universities in the old Commonwealth. Should we not be actually campaigning to bring them here, especially for our National Health Service?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. I think there are 2 points to make here. One is we continue to train people domestically for our NHS. But he is right, the world is changing. We have friends and partners through the Commonwealth, and it is right that we apply equally, rather than having a system of discrimination just for EU nationals to come to the UK, that we apply a system that is fair across all nations around the world.
Lillian Greenwood.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Will she apologise for the anger and hurt that her comments have caused to care workers? And can she tell us what discussion she's had with the Communities and Local Government Secretary about the huge increase in funding that would be necessary to end low pay in the sector whilst tackling the recruitment crisis that's leaving 1.5 million people without the support?
Speech, Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let me reassure the honourable lady that I've been working across all government departments in the delivery of this policy statement and the points-based system, covering all the issues, many of which have been raised by all honourable members this afternoon.
Peter Byrne.
Madam Deputy Speaker, is the Home Secretary as surprised as I am that the benches opposite support a scheme that discriminates against citizens outside the EU and doesn't support a scheme that is fair to everyone?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, my honourable friend makes a very valid point. We are ending the discrimination, obviously. We are open for business, and we're open to all countries and all nationalities when it comes to immigration through the points-based system.
Patrick Grady.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Will these rules undo the injustice of the Tier 5 rules that are currently stopping supply priests from Africa getting short-term visas in the summer months, thereby denying Christian and other communities the opportunity for worship in the summer?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the points-based system is pretty clear, as already has been outlined, in terms of being open, being firm but fair, but I think importantly ending discrimination that has existed for too long in our immigration system.
Felicity Buchan.
Can my right honourable friend confirm that we have already protected the rights of EU citizens already in the UK, many of whom live in Kensington, and already 3 million people have applied for settled status?
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right to raise the EU SS scheme. You heard in my statement earlier on that so far 2.8 million people have been granted their settled status, and there have been over 3 million applications so far.
Alison Dewlis.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituent Nasser Afridi is one of many highly skilled migrants who have seen themselves bankrupted and put into debt as a result of this government's attitude towards migrants under the 322 of the 3225 of the immigration rules. Doesn't she realise how insulting it is to those people to say that she's going to bring in highly skilled people when these highly skilled people have been treated so badly by her government?
Secretary of State.
Well, I would say the complete opposite, that quite frankly the system that we will be bringing in will end the discrimination and show that we are being firm and fair to everybody that has the right level of skills to come to the United Kingdom, and that they will be treated equally and fairly.
Richard Drax.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can I congratulate my right honourable friend for at last beginning to get a grip of immigration, uncontrolled immigration into this country? Does she agree with me that flexibility is the key, and I'm sure she can give the House the assurance she will keep an eye on all the sectors to make sure that flexibility is retained within the system?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think it's important just to restate, for the benefit of the House, the focus and the emphasis this government is placing on the labour market and the needs of the labour market, and that is why this system is flexible, so that all the assessments can be made in terms of any strains, but also if we need to surge employment around certain key sectors.
Florence Eshalomi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Secretary of State mentioned in her statement, we will continue to refine our new immigration system and build in flexibility where it's needed. Does the Secretary of State recognise that by denying migrant workers the right to a family life so that they can bring their families, this is inflexible and actually breach of the Human Rights Act?
Secretary of State.
I hope the Honourable Lady will recognise that within the points-based system, and she would have heard in my statement as well say, that we are welcoming of those with the right skills and the attributes through the points-based system, and that equally applies to their families too.
Alicia Kearns.
Thank you. Last week, my office met with the Russell Group, who are very clear that they welcome this new immigration system because it allows them to recruit from every corner of the world. Now, when I moved to America, because my husband was offered a job, I applied for a spousal visa, and if I got it, we would move, and if we didn't, we wouldn't. This will allow us to recruit people and pay them a decent wage. And does she agree? The opposition doesn't like it because the British people do like it.
My friend makes a very, very valid point that obviously we're on the side of the British public when it comes to delivering the people's priorities. I too met with the Russell Group and other universities last week who are supportive of the routes that we are putting forward for the brightest and the best, but also ensuring that we get the global talent that our academic institutions also need.
Nadia Whittam.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, when I was a care worker, some of the highest skilled people I know taught me how to work miracles in 15-minute calls. This government views people helping others who are sick, elderly or disabled as low-skilled because they are low-paid, denying them the special status offered to billionaires and footballers. For the record, will the Secretary of State explain which aspects of care work she considers low-skilled?
Quick question.
The Honourable Lady will know, and I've already said this and I'll restate this to the House this afternoon. I'm working with the Department of Health and Social Care, the Secretary of State, specifically, she shakes her head, specifically to look at the routes and the support that are needed in the care sector, but importantly the investment. This government is investing in social care in a record way, and it's that investment that will make a difference when it comes to wages, training and investment in social care workers across.